The first time my brother called me a dishwasher, we were standing beside our father's coffin. The second time, he did it in a courtroom filled with reporters. That was the moment he destroyed himself. My sister has spent 15 years exaggerating her military career. Elena Hayes said from the witness stand. She wants everyone to believe she was some kind of secret hero. His attorney leaned casually against the wooden railing. And what did she actually do in the army? Aaron looked directly at me. For a moment, I saw the same expression he had worn when we were children, whenever he believed he had finally found a way to make me feel small. She worked in support facilities, he said. Kitchens, supply rooms, things like that. A few people behind him laughed. Aaron smiled. She washed dishes on military bases. I sat quietly beside my attorney, Noah Bennett, and folded my hands over the dark blue folder resting on my lap. I was not wearing my uniform. There were no medals on my chest, no rank insignia on my shoulders, and no red beret beneath my arm. I wore a simple navy suit, low black shoes, and the silver watch my father had given me when I turned 18. To Aaron, I looked exactly as he wanted me to look. Ordinary, defeated, alone. Judge Miriam Cole studied me from behind the bench. "Lieutenant Colonel Hayes," she said, "would you like to respond?" Aaron's smile weakened. It was the first time that morning anyone had used my rank. His attorney immediately stood. "Your Honor, the respondent has provided no verified record showing that she currently holds that rank." The judge looked toward him. I asked Colonel Hayes whether she wished to respond. I rose slowly. "No, Your Honor." Aaron laughed under his breath. The judge raised an eyebrow. "You do not wish to deny your brother's statement?" "No. Why not?" I looked at Aaron. He had spent 6 months telling the town that I was a liar. He had repeated the same story to our relatives, our father's friends, the foundation's donors, and anyone willing to listen. He believed my silence meant I had no answer. But silence had kept 31 people alive 12 years earlier. Silence was not surrender. "Because my brother did not bring this case to determine what I did in the army," I said. "He brought it to take control of our father's property." The room became quiet, and I believe the documents will answer that question better than I can. Aaron leaned toward his attorney and whispered something. Judge Cole glanced at the clock. "Very well. We will proceed with the next witness." The side door opened. A court officer stepped inside and spoke to the clerk. The clerk's expression changed. She stood. "Your Honor, the respondent's witness has arrived." Aaron looked over his shoulder. The man who entered was tall despite his age. His silver hair was neatly cut, and he wore a dark suit decorated only by a small American flag pin. Most civilians would not have recognized him immediately. The veterans in the courtroom did. 3 men in the courtroom did. 3 men in the back row rose before the judge could say anything. Then 2 reporters stood. Aaron turned pale. Retired 4-star General Thomas Caldwell walked down the center aisle. He did not look toward the judge first. He did not look toward the attorneys. He stopped beside my table and faced me. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then he raised his right hand in a slow, precise salute. "Raven 6, he said. "It has been too long." The courtroom fell completely silent. I stood and returned the salute. "Yes, sir." Aaron's attorney dropped his pen. My brother stared at me as though the woman seated across the courtroom had been replaced by someone he had never met. In a way, she had. 6 months earlier, I had received a call from my father's neighbor while I was stationed overseas. "Elena," Mrs. Walsh said, "your father collapsed this morning." I was standing inside a secure communications room when she called. There were no windows, and the clock on the wall displayed 3 different time zones. "Is he conscious?" "He was when the ambulance came." "Which hospital?" "St. Vincent's." I closed my eyes. My father, Thomas Hayes, had survived 22 years as an Army medic, 2 helicopter crashes, and a heart attack at 58. He had always seemed indestructible. "I'll call Aaron," I said. There was a long pause. He's already here. Of course he was. Aaron lived only 20 minutes from our father's home in Colorado. He managed Dad's charitable foundation and spent most weekends at the property. I had not been home in 11 months. That was the fact Aaron would later repeat to everyone. He would not tell them that I had spent 7 of those months deployed. He would not tell them I had been wounded during an operation. He would not tell them I was recovering under a name that did not appear in any public hospital record. My brother knew only what I was permitted to tell him. Unfortunately, he had always considered missing information an invitation to invent his own version. I requested emergency leave that afternoon. It was denied. The operation I had been supporting was still active, and 3 personnel remained unaccounted for. Leaving would have compromised the teams trying to locate them. I called my father from the secure room. His voice was weak. "You sound terrible," I said. He laughed softly. "You always were a bad liar, Ellie. I'm coming home." "No, you're not." "Dad, you're exactly where you need to be." I gripped the phone. "You don't know that." "Yes, I do." He had never asked me for classified details. He had served long enough to understand that sometimes a daughter could not explain where she was or why she had disappeared. I should be there. I should be there. "You've spent your whole life standing where other people were afraid to stand," he said. "Don't abandon your post because an old medic had a bad morning." It wasn't a bad morning. You collapsed. And now I'm sitting up, arguing with you. That should tell you something. I tried to smile, but my eyes had filled with tears. "Aaron says the foundation is doing well," he continued. "He says a lot of things." My father was quiet for a moment. "Ellie, when you come home, there's something in my office I need you to see." "What?" "The blue ledger." I waited for him to explain. He did not. "Dad? Don't mention it to Aaron." That was the last private conversation I ever had with my father. 3 days later, he died in his sleep. I arrived in Colorado 11 hours after the funeral arrangements had been finalized. Aaron had chosen the church, the coffin, the guest list, and the speaker schedule. He had also removed my name from the ceremony. Our father's memorial was held at the Hayes Veterans Recovery Center, a stone building on 40 acres of land outside Colorado Springs. Dad had created the center after retiring from the Army. It provided temporary housing, counseling, and employment assistance to veterans struggling to return to civilian life. The property had once been our family home. Over the years, Dad had expanded it into a residential facility with 12 rooms, a therapy wing, a workshop, and a large hall used for ceremonies. Nearly 200 people attended his memorial. Aaron stood at the entrance greeting donors as though he had personally built the place. He wore an expensive gray suit and a carefully rehearsed expression of grief. When he saw me, his eyes moved to the red beret beneath my arm. "What are you wearing?" "My service uniform." "You couldn't come as yourself. This is part of who I am." He lowered his voice. "Dad's donors are here. Local officials are here. Don't turn this into one of your military performances." I looked past him at the photograph displayed near the coffin. Our father was wearing his old medic's uniform and smiling beside a young veteran in a wheelchair. "What military performance? You know exactly what I mean." "No, Aaron, I don't." He glanced around to make sure no one was listening. "You disappear for a year, come back wearing a costume, and expect everyone to treat you like some decorated war hero. It isn't a costume. Then tell me what you actually do." I said nothing. He smiled bitterly. "That's what I thought." A volunteer approached and asked Aaron about the seating plan. He turned away from me. "There's a chair near the kitchen," he said. "You can sit there." I watched him walk toward the donors. My father had raised us in the same house, attended the same school events, and taught us the same rules. But Aaron had always believed love was something that could be measured. Who received more attention? Who earned more praise? Who was trusted with more responsibility? When I joined the Army, Dad understood why. Aaron never did. He believed my service was another way of taking something from him. The memorial began at noon. Aaron gave the opening speech. He spoke about sacrifice, integrity, and service. He described himself as the son who had remained behind to continue our father's mission. Then he looked toward the back of the hall. My sister Elena chose a different path, he said. She has spent many years moving between military support assignments. We are grateful she was able to leave her duties long enough to join us. The words sounded respectful. The tone was not. Several relatives turned toward me. My aunt whispered something to her husband. Aaron continued. Dad often said service is not about uniforms or titles. It is about showing up for the people who need you. That line was aimed directly at me. He wanted the room to remember that I had not been beside our father when he died. When the ceremony ended, I walked toward Dad's office. The door was locked. Aaron appeared behind me. What are you doing? Dad asked me to look at something. In his office? Yes, this is my office now. He specifically asked me to find the blue ledger. His expression changed for less than a second. Then he smiled. There is no blue ledger. You knew what I was referring to before I described it. I managed this facility with Dad for 8 years. I know every file in that room. Then you know where it is. He moved closer. Listen carefully, Elena. Dad left the foundation to me. He left the operational accounts to me. He left this property to me. The will has not been read. I know what it says. How? His jaw tightened. Behind him, 2 board members were walking toward us. Aaron changed his voice immediately. Elena is having a difficult day, he told them. She thinks Dad left her some personal military records. One of the men gave me a sympathetic look. Aaron placed a hand on my shoulder. I removed it. I'm going into the office, I said. No. Are you refusing me access to our father's belongings? I'm protecting foundation documents. From me? From someone who hasn't been involved in this family for 15 years. People were beginning to watch us. That was what Aaron wanted. He stepped closer and looked at my uniform. Dad told people you were a soldier because he was embarrassed to admit the truth. I felt the room narrow around us. What truth? That his daughter never became anything. A few guests stopped talking. Aaron pointed toward a framed photograph hanging near the kitchen doors. It showed me at 26, wearing fatigues and standing beside several stainless steel tables in a field dining facility. You told everyone you were deployed, he said. But there you are, carrying food trays. I remembered the photograph. It had been taken 12 hours after an evacuation. Our team had used the dining facility as a temporary command post because the communications building had been destroyed. I had been carrying medical packs, not food trays. The faces of 3 people in that photograph were still classified. Aaron did not know that. You were a dishwasher, he said, and you've spent years letting Dad pretend you were something more. A few people looked away. Others stared. I could have answered him. I could have listed the commands I had served under, the operations I had led, or the people I had brought home. But my father's voice came back to me, the blue ledger. So I did what Aaron least expected. I removed the key from the chain around my neck. Dad had mailed it to me 4 years earlier without an explanation. I inserted it into the office door. The lock opened. Aaron's face lost its color. The office smelled exactly as I remembered it. Coffee, old paper, and the cedar oil Dad used on his desk. Nothing appeared disturbed. But military training teaches you that appeared is one of the most dangerous words in any investigation. The photographs had been moved. The bottom desk drawer showed fresh scratches around the lock. A filing cabinet stood half an inch farther from the wall than the discoloration on the carpet indicated it should. Aaron remained in the doorway. You have 5 minutes. I ignored him. Dad's shelves held dozens of blue binders, but no ledger. I opened the desk drawer. See? Aaron said. There's nothing here. I looked at the photograph above the desk. Dad and I stood together at my commissioning ceremony. His hand rested on my shoulder. The frame was slightly crooked. My father hated crooked frames. I lifted it from the wall. Behind it was a narrow metal compartment. Aaron moved forward. "What is that?" "You said you knew every file in this office." I inserted the small key. Inside the compartment were 3 items: a blue leather ledger, a sealed envelope bearing my name, and a flash drive wrapped in my father's old medical insignia cloth. Aaron reached for the ledger. I stepped between him and the wall. "It belongs to the foundation." It was hidden behind a family photograph. "I am the executive director." "Then call your attorney." His eyes hardened. "You think putting on a uniform makes you powerful?" "No." I placed the ledger inside my bag. But people who feel powerless usually reach for titles. "You've mentioned yours 3 times since I entered the room." Aaron glanced toward the hallway. "You have no idea what you're interfering with." That sentence told me more than anything inside the compartment. I looked at him. I think Dad wanted me to find out. That evening, I opened the envelope in my hotel room. My father's handwriting covered 6 pages. The first paragraph was personal. The second was an apology. By the third, I understood why he had hidden the ledger. Aaron had been diverting money from the recovery center. At first, the amounts were small: consulting fees, travel reimbursements, and maintenance invoices. Then Dad discovered a company called Mason Ridge Development had been paid nearly $900,000 for construction that had never occurred. The company was registered through 2 shell corporations. My father believed Aaron controlled all of them. He had confronted my brother. Aaron denied everything and accused Dad of cognitive decline. Soon afterward, Aaron began telling board members that our father was no longer capable of managing his affairs. Dad had quietly amended the family trust. The recovery center, property and remaining assets would pass to a protected charitable trust. I had been named the controlling trustee. Aaron would retain a financial interest, only if no evidence of fraud or self-dealing was discovered. The final paragraph contained one instruction: "Do not punish your brother because he hurt you. Hold him accountable because he hurt people who trusted us." I read the letter twice. Then I opened the blue ledger. Dad had recorded dates, transfers, account numbers, and conversations. But the ledger alone would not be enough. Aaron could call it the confused writing of a dying man. The flash drive contained copies of contracts, bank statements, and audio files. One file was labeled AR on, final warning. I pressed play. My father's voice filled the room. "You are stealing from veterans," Aaron responded immediately. "I'm protecting what belongs to this family. It belongs to the men and women this center was built to serve. You gave everything away. The land, the money, your time. What did you leave for me? I gave you responsibility. You gave Elena your pride." There was a pause. Then Aaron said something I would never forget. "She isn't here. She is never here. I'm the one standing in front of you." Dad's reply was quiet. Standing close to someone does not mean you stand with them. The recording ended. I sat alone in the hotel room until sunrise. At 7, I called a military friend who now worked in federal financial investigations. At 8, I called an attorney. At 9, Aaron filed an emergency petition claiming our father's trust amendment was fraudulent. He had moved faster than I expected, but not faster than Dad had prepared me to move. Aaron's lawsuit claimed I had manipulated our father while he was ill. According to his petition, I had invented a military career to intimidate him and gain control of the trust. He requested that the court remove me as trustee, declare the amendment invalid, grant him control of the property, authorize an immediate sale to Mason Ridge Development. That final request was his mistake. The recovery center sat on land now worth more than $12 million. Mason Ridge had offered $6 million. Aaron called it an urgent rescue sale. I called it evidence. My attorney, Noah Bennett, wanted to seek an immediate injunction. "Your brother is moving money," he said. "We should freeze everything." "Not yet. If he sells the property, he won't." "You seem very confident." "He doesn't want the property sold to anyone. He wants it sold to Mason Ridge." Noah studied me. "You think he owns the buyer. I think he believes we cannot prove it." "Can we?" "Not yet." I placed a document on the table. It was a preliminary settlement proposal. Under its terms, I would resign as trustee and allow the sale if Aaron personally certified that he had no ownership interest in Mason Ridge. He had received no undisclosed payments. The sale was conducted at arm's length. All foundation funds had been used for charitable purposes. Noah read the conditions. "He'll never sign this." "He will if he believes I'm afraid of public testimony." We allowed Aaron to discover that some of my military records were restricted. His attorney immediately built their case around it. They told reporters I could not prove where I had served. They circulated the photograph from the field dining facility. Aaron gave an interview outside the courthouse. "My sister's story has never made sense," he said. "Real heroes don't hide behind classified records." 2 days later, he signed the certification. He believed he had won. He did not know that a federal investigator had already connected Mason Ridge to an account used to pay the mortgage on his vacation home. He did not know that Dad had recorded their final conversation. And he did not know that General Thomas Caldwell had received authorization to testify about one specific operation. Aaron thought he had forced me into the light. He had actually stepped into it himself. General Caldwell took the witness stand. Aaron's attorney approached cautiously. "General, you understand this is a civil dispute concerning a family trust." "I do, and you are not here to influence the court through your former rank?" "No." "Then why are you here?" General Caldwell looked toward me. "Because Mr. Hayes has based part of his fraud allegation on the claim that his sister fabricated her military service." The attorney adjusted his glasses. "Can you verify every assignment held by Lieutenant Colonel Hayes?" "No," Aaron smiled. "Because many of her assignments were insignificant?" the attorney asked. "Because many remain classified." The smile disappeared. The attorney walked toward the display screen. The photograph from the memorial appeared. It showed me inside the damaged dining facility, holding 2 black cases. "Do you recognize this photograph?" "I do. Does it show Colonel Hayes working in a kitchen?" "It shows her inside a field dining structure." "Carrying kitchen equipment?" General Caldwell leaned forward. "Those were encrypted communications units." The attorney stopped walking. The general continued. "The location had been attacked 14 hours earlier. Colonel Hayes established a temporary coordination center there because it was the only structure with intact power." Aaron stared at the photograph. General Caldwell looked at him. "Your sister was not washing dishes." No one laughed this time. "What was her role?" Judge Cole asked. Caldwell waited until the courtroom security officer closed the doors. "She was the operational commander of the recovery team." Aaron's attorney tried to interrupt. The judge raised her hand. "Let him finish." The general's voice remained calm. "The unit's identifying information remains restricted. However, I have authorization to confirm that Colonel Hayes coordinated the evacuation of 31 military and civilian personnel." He paused. "I was one of them." The courtroom shifted around me. Reporters began writing. Aaron shook his head. "No," he whispered. General Caldwell heard him. "Yes, Mr. Hayes." He turned slightly in the witness chair. "Your sister entered a structure that had already been declared too unstable for a second rescue attempt. She remained inside until every surviving member of my group had been removed." Aaron's attorney cleared his throat. "Was Colonel Hayes awarded for this operation?" "She was." "Which award?" "I am authorized to confirm a Distinguished Service Cross and 2 additional commendations connected to the operation." My brother's face had become gray. He looked toward me. For the first time in my life, Aaron did not look angry. He looked frightened, not because of my rank, not because of the general. He was frightened because the story he had built about me had collapsed in front of everyone. His attorney attempted one final question. General Caldwell, are you suggesting that military heroism proves Colonel Hayes is qualified to manage a multi-million-dollar trust? No. The general looked toward the judge. Her service record is relevant, only because the petitioner accused her of lying. Then he faced Aaron. Integrity does not automatically come with a uniform. He glanced at me, and neither does it disappear when the uniform is removed. Judge Cole called a recess. Aaron followed me into the hallway. Elena, I kept walking. Elena, stop. I turned. He lowered his voice. Why didn't you tell us? Dad knew. I'm your brother. You never asked what I had done. You only asked why no one praised you for staying. His eyes moved toward the reporters gathering near the courtroom doors. You humiliated me. No, Aaron. I opened the blue folder. You did that when you lied under oath. I handed him a copy of the certification he had signed. His eyes stopped at the section concerning Mason Ridge. What is this? The reason the general was not my most important witness. When court resumed, Noah called a forensic accountant named Rachel Lynn. She presented the financial records clearly. Mason Ridge Development had received $912,000 from the Hayes Veterans Recovery Center. The company had completed less than $90,000 in verifiable work. From there, the money moved through two entities. One account paid for a condominium registered to Aaron's wife. Another paid $214,000 toward Aaron's vacation property. Aaron's attorney objected repeatedly. The judge overruled him repeatedly. Then Noah played my father's recording. Aaron's voice filled the courtroom. I'm protecting what belongs to this family. My father answered, it belongs to the men and women this center was built to serve. Aaron stared at the table. The man who had spent years accusing me of hiding behind silence now had nowhere to hide from his own words. Noah placed the trust amendment on the evidence screen. The relevant clause stated that any beneficiary who stole from, defrauded, or attempted to force the improper sale of foundation property would automatically lose all interest in the Hayes estate. Aaron's share would pass directly into the charitable trust. Judge Cole removed her glasses. Mr. Hayes, did you disclose your financial connection to Mason Ridge before requesting authorization for this sale? Aaron said nothing. Mr. Hayes? His attorney whispered to him. Aaron finally answered. I did not believe it was relevant. You requested that this court approve a transaction that would transfer charitable property to an entity from which you personally benefited. It wasn't like that. How was it? Aaron looked toward me. This was supposed to be mine. The words escaped before his attorney could stop him. My father promised I would run the center. Noah stood. Running a charitable organization does not make you its owner. Aaron struck the table with his palm. She left. Everyone froze. He pointed at me. She was never there. I handled Dad's medication. I attended the board meetings. I listened to him talk about her as if she were the only person in the world who understood sacrifice. His voice broke. I gave him 8 years. I rose before Noah could stop me. And the veterans who trusted you gave you their money. Aaron looked at me. That's what you care about. That's what Dad cared about. You always got to be the hero. No. My voice remained quiet. I spent most of my life making sure people never knew what I did. I looked at the photograph still visible on the evidence screen. You were the one who needed an audience. Judge Cole ordered Aaron to sit down. Her ruling came 40 minutes later. The trust amendment was valid. I would remain controlling trustee. The proposed sale was denied. Aaron was removed from every position associated with the recovery center. His beneficial interest in the estate was terminated under the fraud clause. The court referred the financial evidence to state and federal authorities. Aaron did not look at me when the judge finished. As officers approached to speak with his attorney, I closed the blue folder. I felt no triumph. Revenge, I had learned, was often imagined as a moment of satisfaction. A door slamming, a villain begging, or a room finally recognizing the hero. But the truth was quieter. The truth was watching my brother lose everything our father had trusted him to protect. It did not feel like victory. It felt like a wound being cleaned, necessary, painful, and long overdue. 3 months later, the Hayes Veterans Recovery Center reopened under a new board. The money recovered from Aaron's accounts funded 6 additional residential rooms and a legal assistance program for military families facing housing disputes. We renamed the main building Thomas Hayes House. I did not place my photograph in the entrance hall. I did not display my medals. Instead, I hung the old picture of Dad, helping a young veteran out of a wheelchair. Beneath it, we placed the sentence he had written in his letter. Standing close to someone does not mean you stand with them. Aaron eventually accepted a plea agreement. He was ordered to repay the stolen funds, surrender the properties purchased with foundation money, and serve a sentence that included confinement and supervised release. Yet he wrote to me twice. The first letter blamed Dad. The second blamed me. I answered neither. 6 months after the hearing, I returned to Dad's office alone. The blue ledger was now locked in an evidence archive, but his personal letter remained with me. I read the final page again. There was a paragraph I had initially believed referred to Aaron. Now I was no longer sure. There is one more reason I chose you as trustee. A man came to see me 2 years ago. He asked questions about an operation called Silent Lantern. He believed you still had something that belonged to him. I told him my daughter had given enough. But I do not think he believed me. Beneath the paragraph, Dad had written a name. Victor Kane. I had not heard that name in 12 years. Not since the night Marcus Reed disappeared. I reached beneath my shirt and held the old dog tags resting against my chest. Outside the office window, several veterans were repairing the garden fence. Their voices carried through the open glass. For the first time since Dad's death, the center felt alive again. I folded the letter. My brother's betrayal had been exposed. My father's legacy was safe, but the secret he had protected was larger than our family. On the desk, my phone vibrated. The message contained no number, only 4 words. Raven 6, he survived. I stared at the screen. Then I looked toward my red beret hanging beside the door. For years, I had believed the most dangerous parts of my life were behind me. I was wrong. My name is Elena Hayes. My family thought I washed dishes. My brother thought my silence made me weak. And somewhere, a man I had buried 12 years ago was waiting for me to find him.